Good morning. Hope this morning finds you well. I hope there was not much damage from the storm recently at your house, and I'm looking forward to doing a daily devotion with you today. Out of John chapter 11, verses 1 through 6, we're looking at, in this particular section, Jesus being confronted with the expectations of people versus obedience to God. And his humanity is really going to come into play here. When we see his humanity on display, we are able to connect so much with events and challenges in our own life, and I'm looking forward to that. Before you start, again, I want you to notice the prayer that I'm asking you to pray, and that is that the Spirit would help you imagine this particular scene from Jesus' perspective, from his point of view, and again, connect with his conflict as we are also conflicted in much the same way. Now, I don't really think that Jesus was considering in any regard preventing Lazarus from dying, the glory of God being so much higher than any other calling that we face. But there is a sense that in allowing Lazarus to die and to be buried and for his body to begin to decompose after several days in the tomb, that Jesus may appear to be compassionless, especially to the sisters. And I think he's really struggling with this because appearances don't always tell the truth, and of course Jesus is anything but compassionless. And that in his friends he's putting them in a place that they are going to be unwilling participants in this experience of dark emotion and deep sadness and great grief. And I think all of this he's bearing with all of this. He has already prevented this same kind of emotional distress for countless others, and now his dear friends face it. But he knows the will of God in this because of the Spirit of God in him, and that this episode will declare or will work for the glory of God, and he must allow it in order to teach this primary truth, that he is resurrection life. Not that he has resurrection life, not even that he gives resurrection life, but that he is resurrection life, and that he lives that resurrection life in every believer by his Spirit in them. He is resurrection life, and that all who live and believe in him will never die. Now, again, we've been wrestling with the difference between physical truth and spiritual truth, and this is another one of those points of contention for us. He is not talking about will never die physically. He's talking about will never die spiritually, and he's talking about us, literally. Those who live and believe. You live and believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And you and I will never die. We will shed this outer body, which cannot go on into the imperishable because it is material and perishable. And we will be given another body in due time at his return, at Christ's return. Because Jesus was human, there is no escaping the pain that his decision to obey God inflicted on Mary and Martha, as well as himself, in obedience to doing God's will. The Father always knows best. but sometimes his will is at odds with what is simple and easy and perhaps obvious and painless, physically and emotionally. See how human Jesus is, as the obvious choice of obedience brings a conflicting sense of deep sadness, even to him. Remember that the scriptures declare this truth about Jesus. Even though he was a son, he learned obedience through the things he suffered. For he was tempted in all ways as we are, yet without sin. Today, let's concentrate on knowing what God's will is, realizing that it's up to him to convey this will in a way that we can understand it, because he's the one who knows his will and we're the ones who need to know his will. So let's let him convey his will in regard to whatever challenge and circumstance we have today. And let's follow him in doing that will, regardless of how many objections to that will, how many distasteful events it could bring or conclusions it could bring even about us. Let's let God be the judge of all that is good, because he's the only one that's capable of doing it. Live loved today, because you most assuredly are in Christ Jesus. God bless you.